eye for an eye, a tariff for a tariff, same exact amount. This was the election promise that the current US president gave to his voters. And this is exactly what he's planning to do to every country, whether it be an enemy or an ally. In December 2024, the US faced a trade deficit of $98.4 billion. One of the reasons that the US points out for this disparity is the high tariffs which are imposed on US goods by foreign countries. This is why the current president of US decided to impose reciprocal tariffs on countries. But is this a good move? And how will it affect the US? More importantly, how will it affect our dear motherland, India? Let's answer these questions in this video. Friends, before we understand the story behind the growing trade deficit in the world, let me just explain to you what trade deficit is. In simple words, a trade deficit occurs when a country imports more than it exports. Imagine a country A that exports items worth $100 million to country B and in turn imports items worth $200 million from country B. Then it can be said that country A has a trade deficit of $100 million with country B. In country B's point of view, it is in a trade surplus of $100 million with country A. By this case study, I hope that you have understood what trade deficit and trade surplus means. So let's continue the case of the US. So why is the US facing such high trade deficits? One of the reasons is its macroeconomic policies. America is a country with high investment needs but low domestic savings. Before we move further, let's just understand what investment needs and domestic savings are. So investment needs is the amount of money which is required by a country to invest in infrastructure, technology, education, etc. This is very important for a country's growth. Domestic savings, on the other hand, is the total amount of money households, businesses, and governments save. This money can be reinvested in the economy. Now, as we know, America has a low domestic savings but high investment needs. So what they do is they borrow from countries like China which have high domestic savings. This borrowed money is invested in the economy. This increases the demand for imported goods. Another reason is the dollar being used as a de facto global currency. This facilitates the US to import goods in exchange for dollars because many countries store dollars as reserve currency. Investors find dollars as a safe financial instrument, so they are ready to lend money to the US in return for US Treasury securities. This money, which is borrowed by the US in exchange for securities, is used for investments, which increases import. Now, another big reason, according to some officials, is the unfair bilateral trade relations between the US and countries like Canada and China. This is the argument that we are going to decode in the coming sections. Some economists in the US believe that trade barriers imposed by various countries is a major factor behind the trade deficit. The trade barriers include tariffs on US products, subsidies for domestic products, and discriminatory regulations. If such trade barriers weren't imposed, then US producers may have sold a bit more, but still the US consumption pattern would keep the demand for imported goods high. Also, if high tariffs are imposed on one particular country, then it doesn't necessarily reduce the imports. Instead, there would be a trade diversion, meaning the same product would be imported from a different country. A famous example is when there was an increase in imports from other countries during the US-China trade war that started in mid-2018. Here are the countries that were benefited from this trade war. And in case the economy is closed to imports, then it would halt the economic development of the United States. For the matter of fact, bilateral trade isn't always about the import and export of final products. Instead, it includes the export and import of products which undergoes value addition. For example, the American car brand Tesla has multiple contracts with Chinese suppliers for supply of components such as lithium hydroxide and lithium carbonate for its batteries. If tariffs are imposed on China, then it would mean that the raw materials would get costly, increasing the cost of the car itself, which would be passed down to the customers. The officials in the White House are yet to realize the fact that US companies are dependent on import of raw materials because there are no US substitutes. Some of the examples are rare earth minerals, high quality graphite, Kashmir wool, which is a type of wool of Pashmina goods found in Ladakh, a union territory of India. So far, we have looked at the causes of trade deficits and the effects of trade barrier on the US. Now, let's understand what reciprocal tariffs are. Reciprocal tariffs means a country, in this case the USA, would raise the tariffs to the exact level as their trading partners. Let me simplify it for you. Let's consider two countries, X and Y. Now imagine that they sell motorcycles to each other. Then X would charge 10% import duty on bikes from Y, and Y charges 5% import duty on bikes from X. In this scenario, you can see that bikes from X would be comparatively cheaper in Y due to the lower taxes. But on the other hand, bikes from Y would be costly in X due to higher taxes. Now Y start feeling that this is unfair. So Y decides to raise the import duty to 10%. So now both X and Y charge the same import duty on bikes from the counterpart. This is known as reciprocal tariffs. Friends, if you have understood what reciprocal tariffs are, then let's understand what Mr. Donald Trump is intending to do. Mr. Trump intends to impose reciprocal tariffs on products which the US feels is being imported more than exported because of the unequal import duties. Look at this chart that shows the largest trading partners of the US. Here it can be seen that the trading partners enjoy a trade surplus. Mr. Trump believes that this is because of the high import duties imposed by these countries on US products. He also believes that the US imposes comparatively lower import duties on the products from these countries. So he has decided to impose reciprocal tariffs on these countries. Now there are two things that may happen if reciprocal tariffs are imposed. Imports from the countries may become costly, or the countries may lower the duties imposed on US products. Both would provide a push for US products over their foreign counterparts. Friends, since we have talked about Trump's plans, let's look at how it would affect the world. Trump's tariffs, especially on countries such as Canada, Mexico, China, and the EU, would mean that the world economy would see a major shift in trade as these countries would focus on other developed and developing economies for exporting items. This would also mean that such countries would have to go for measures such as free trade agreement with economies to ensure that they get open access to these economies. These countries are also increasing tariffs on the US in retaliation. This would mean that every product is either directly imported from the US or has an item in the supply chain which is from the US could see an increase in price. Friends, we have come to the final section, which is the impact of US tariffs on India. If, and by if I mean a big if, Trump imposes reciprocal tariffs on India, the country may face a drop in exports. How much? Well, according to the forecast by Citigroup, the estimated value is $7 billion. Exports of jewelry, steel and metal, and chemicals would be affected the most. However, the chances of the US imposing tariffs on India are significantly low. Both the countries are trying to improve their bilateral trade. India has also made an effort to de-escalate the situation by reducing tariffs on items such as motorcycles. Also, the Indian PM visited the US president recently and the visit was said to be successful. Such measures do reduce the chances of the US imposing tariffs on India. There is one more angle to this, which is a potential free trade agreement between India and the EU. Friends, if you're wondering what a free trade agreement means, let me make it simple for you. It's a mutual agreement between two countries to reduce or eliminate trade barriers. This would mean that there would be more export opportunities for Indian businesses in the European market, but at the same time, more competition for domestic suppliers in India due to imported products from the EU. This would also mean that Indian workers can get higher job opportunities in the EU. India is looking at alternative markets for trade. One such example is Qatar. Recently, the Amir of Qatar, Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, was invited to India by PM Narendra Modi. This was intended to strengthen bilateral ties between the countries. So, in conclusion, the potential effects of a trade war is ambiguous to the world and to India. As a citizen, the only thing we can do is wait and watch for now. And if you are a businessman, then you must prepare for such changes in the future. You must make sure that your business is agile for such future volatility. With this, we have arrived at the end of our video. If you have enjoyed this video, make sure to like. Also, If you have any thoughts or recommendations, do post it in the comment section. We would be very grateful for every recommendation you give, as it helps us improve our future videos and deliver the best content for you. Finally, if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing. Hope that we meet again. Till then, thank you. Jai Hind.